What if stupidity isn't the opposite of intelligence, but something far more dangerous? What if the real threat to modern civilization isn't malevolence or hatred, but thoughtlessness? Have you ever agreed with something not because it made sense, but because everyone else did? Think of it. A trained physician spreading conspiracy theories, a well-read professor excusing authoritarian cruelty, a caring parent making irrational decisions that harm their own children. These aren't caricatures of evil. They're intelligent people who've stopped thinking for themselves. This isn't science fiction. It's the reality German theologian Dietrich Bonhoeffer faced, and it's becoming ours too. His theory of stupidity wasn't a casual insult. It was a precise, disturbing diagnosis of how societies surrender to destructive forces not through hate, but through intellectual passivity. And it may be more relevant now than ever. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the Mental Dose channel and join our Telegram community, where you'll get early access to new videos and insights on personal and spiritual growth. Now let's get started. To understand the full weight of Bonhoeffer's theory, we need to start where he did, amid the collapse of rational Germany into ideological extremism. Dietrich Bonhoeffer wasn't a distant academic. He was a pastor, a resistor, and ultimately a political prisoner. Born into an educated family in early 20th century Germany, he believed in the promise of rational dialogue and intellectual rigor. But as the Nazi regime rose to power, he watched that promise collapse in real time. What shocked him wasn't simply the cruelty of fascism. It was how many of Germany's most educated citizens embraced it. Professors, clergy, doctors, not under duress but willingly, with conviction. From his prison cell in 1943, while awaiting execution for his role in a plot against Hitler, Bonhoeffer began to write about something even darker than evil. He called it stupidity, but not in the way we usually mean it. For Bonhoeffer, stupidity was not about ignorance or lack of intellect. It was about surrendering one's capacity to think. And here's what terrified him most. You could be brilliant and still fall into it. Unlike evil, which often sparks resistance, stupidity feels righteous. It wears a mask of morality. It cannot be reasoned with because it doesn't recognize reasoning at all. Bonhoeffer wrote, "Against stupidity we are defenseless. Neither protests nor the use of force accomplish anything here. Reasons fall on deaf ears." This wasn't pessimism. It was precision. Bonhoeffer saw stupidity not as an individual flaw, but as a social phenomenon, a collective condition that emerges under pressure, where people no longer think independently, but instead recite slogans, adopt group consensus, and shut down dissent. And it almost always benefits those in power. But Bonhoeffer's theory didn't end with observation. It asked a deeper question. What systems allow stupidity to flourish, and why do people surrender to it? To answer that, we need to shift our focus to the present. Bonhoeffer's ideas gain new urgency when we look at the systems we live in today. We often assume that more access to information leads to better decisions. But in the age of algorithms, what we actually get is more stimulation, not more clarity. Social media doesn't exist to inform, it exists to engage, and nothing engages like outrage, confirmation, and simplicity. When we're flooded with content, our brains adapt by reducing complexity. We stop evaluating and start reacting. Studies in cognitive science show that under stress, the human mind becomes less willing to entertain nuance and more eager to latch onto certainty. What Bonhoeffer sensed in Nazi Germany, how societal pressure can make people abandon thought, has become systematized in the digital age, not by force, but by design. Platforms profit when we think less and click more. Politicians win when slogans beat substance. Our culture, both online and offline, is tuned to reward emotional reaction over intellectual engagement. This is why Bonhoeffer's view of stupidity wasn't moralistic. It was structural. He wasn't condemning individuals. He was revealing how modern life incentivizes intellectual surrender. And yet his most unsettling insight was still to come. Stupidity doesn't grow in isolation, it grows in groups, which brings us to the social engine behind collective thoughtlessness. Bonhoeffer observed that individuals often think clearly until they become part of a group. That's when intellectual independence begins to dissolve. Psychology has backed this up repeatedly. The Asch conformity experiments proved that most people will abandon what they know to be true if everyone else around them says otherwise. Milgram's obedience study showed how ordinary people can be coaxed into unthinkable acts just by authority figures giving the right commands. And in today's digital environment, group pressure has become ambient. Social media creates echo chambers where dissent feels like betrayal. The algorithms feed us what we agree with. They filter out the friction. The result? We lose the habit of doubt. We outsource our opinions. We become, as Bonhoeffer warned, carriers of slogans rather than thinkers with conviction. This isn't happening in the margins. It's happening everywhere. In classrooms, boardrooms, political arenas, and in our own conversations. The shift isn't dramatic. It's subtle. A gradual erosion of intellectual autonomy disguised as agreement and belonging, which leads us to the most important and most difficult question of all. How do we fight back? How do we stay human in systems that benefit when we stop thinking? If this video is helping you see things more clearly, take a moment to share it with someone who might need this perspective. And if you'd like to support more content like this, you can tap the thanks button below. Every bit of support helps keep thoughtful conversations alive. Now let's return to the core idea. For Bonhoeffer, resistance didn't begin with activism. It began with thought, with refusing to give in to mental laziness or social conformity. He called it costly grace, the act of choosing truth even when it's uncomfortable, unpopular, or dangerous. Today, that resistance starts with everyday intellectual courage, the willingness to be uncertain, the discipline to read opposing viewpoints, the humility to admit we don't know something. These are not grand gestures, but in a world addicted to quick takes and false certainty, they are radical. We can't expect to fix our systems overnight, but we can disrupt the habits that those systems depend on. We can slow down before sharing. We can ask, what would change my mind? We can practice being wrong and learning from it. Thinking has become a countercultural act, but it's also the most human one we have. Bonhoeffer believed that when people stop thinking independently, they stop being fully human. They become puppets of whatever force is loudest at the moment. And so he asked a question we still haven't answered. Who stands fast? When truth becomes costly, when comfort demands silence, who keeps thinking? If you've made it this far, maybe the answer is you. Here's your challenge. Pick one belief you hold strongly. Spend 30 minutes researching the best arguments against it, not to change your mind, but to keep it alive. If it stands, you'll be stronger. If it doesn't, you'll be wiser. In a world that profits from your surrender, choosing to think is the most powerful act of resistance you can make. If this video made you question something, even a little, leave a comment below and tell us what idea you're rethinking. And don't forget to subscribe to Mental Dose for daily insights on personal growth, critical thinking, and mental clarity. We're building a community of people who still care about thought in a world that's trying to erase it. Because every time you choose curiosity over certainty and truth over comfort, you're not just protecting your mind. You're defending the future of human wisdom.